Hello, Sunday. It is Sunday. It's actually my Monday because it's morning time, but it's probably your Sunday wherever you are in the in the world. Um, when you're just going to have a crazy week, babes. This week is going to be a crazy week. Um, yeah, we're going to be on planes. We're going to be taking flights at off-key times. So just to be clear, like there are so many things that I do to travel well. Sophie, thank you very much, my darling. You're very, very kind. Unicorn Book, thank you. Yeah, there's so many things that I do to like travel seamlessly. And one of them is the time. I'm very particular about the time that I book my flight. Here I am, baby girl, big up yourself, babes. Yeah, so one of them is the time. I'm gonna just talk a little bit about traveling, like traveling with children and how to make it a little bit easier. And one of the things is the time that I book my flights. So even if the flight is cheaper, you're glowing. And yes, how do you travel with the babies? Thank you very much, Marcella. Amber, thank you. So the time that I book, even if the flight time is like a worse convenient time, like less convenient but cheaper, I will not book that flight. I believe in like paying a little bit extra in order to get the right time. And what I mean by that is I always say, people always say like, oh, how do you travel with the girls by yourself, blah, blah. And my point is that if your children are lovely on the ground, just because you are 30,000 feet in the air, babes, it's not going to change anything. They're still going to be lovely as long as you set up yourself for success. Now, I keep their routine exactly the same. So I will bring pajamas. I will bring a little book to make sure that we read before they go to bed. I will eat at the same time with them. You guys, if you've been following me, you know that I always bring food on the plane. Yes, the food on the plane is nasty, but also, thank you very much, Amber. Hi Isaiah, big up yourself, baby. But also, it's not just the ingredients, right? If you've ever been on a flight, you know that you can get on the plane and they're not immediately serving. And I don't know if you've ever been on a flight with turbulence, babes, but they could have their idea of when they're gonna serve you. And if you are go joke, 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 joke in the air, you will hear an announcement that says that they are going to push back on service because it is not safe for their flight attendants to be walking around the place and the plane feel like it's going to drop out of the sky, right? So my point is that when you bring your own food, you're not being held hostage to the airplane schedule because you've just got it like that, babes. So I bring food, I keep their schedule the same. I always have some activities. These activities tend to be coloring or magnetic puzzles is a big one. It's always been a big one for us. No, Martina, they've never been scared of flying. They don't know any different, to be honest. The first time they were on a plane, they were 11 months old and they were only that old because it was still COVID times and you couldn't travel. But my children are very comfortable on flights. So the point is, we're about to take a flight this week and it is not going to be at a great time. Lee, big up yourself, my darling. Or Le, I'm not sure how I'm saying that right. Can you give me advice on what if they don't allow food on the plane? Babes, I've never been on a flight where they don't allow food on the plane. Like, I've never seen this. People will restrict what you can enter into their country with food, where food is concerned. So, for example, most times, the food done. I don't have any extra food, right? But for example, we landed in Australia in December, and anybody knows anything about immigration, Australia or customs, anything like that, you've all seen the reality TV shows. Australia is probably the most strict. And my point is, I landed in Australia and we had some pearl barley, we had a little bit of cucumber, like raw cucumber, and a few other things, right? And I declared them. I went to the desk. I showed the lady what I had. She allowed me to keep the pearl barley. And in case you're wondering why I'm keeping it, it was because, again, if my children get hungry before we reach our destination, I know that it's not an issue, right? And the customs officer said to my girls, "You're very lucky that your mom prepares really good food for you," which I thought was really kind. But my point is, if I can go to Australia and still bring food, babes, you can bring food anywhere. But the flight that we're taking this week is at 1 o'clock in the morning, right? So it's at 1 o'clock in the morning. So two things to be conscious of if you are taking a flight at an off-key time is, because I don't live anywhere, right? So I have to book an extra day on the Airbnb that I'm staying in, because we're not going to be checking out at like what 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. But I also have to book an extra day on the Airbnb when we arrive because we're arriving too early. So that's just something to keep in mind in terms of your planning. Like, just make sure that you've booked an extra day on both sides. But I'm a little bit nervous about it because it means that we're probably going to need to get to the airport for like, I want to say like 11. I don't do 3 hours. I think 3 hours is a little bit too much, but 2 hours, like a good 2 hours is good, right? And before I had kids, babes, I was running down planes. Like, I was never checking in early. I was always that last minute person. With children, we are not having stress in our lives. I do also think that a part of the reason why my girls are so good is because we just don't have like rushed environments, but I won't digress. I will stick to travel. So we're gonna have to probably get to the airport around 11, leave where I am sort of around like 9:30. I like to give myself a little bit of extra time just for traffic or anything else like that. And so they're going to bed these days at 8 o'clock. So if you're going to bed at 8 o'clock and then I have to wake you up at 9:30, I just don't think it makes sense. So I think we're gonna just push through and keep them awake. The last time I had an off-key airplane flight time, it was from Thailand to London. That was last year, April. And it was like, I think at midnight, we're still waiting for the flight. And Maya said to me, she's like, Mommy, I'm tired. I need to go to my bed. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is that my children don't have FOMO. They never have fear of missing out. They never try and stay up late. They never try and like push that boundary because I think they like going to bed when they are tired. And so I know there's going to be a little bit of push and pull because it is going to be outside of their usual bedtime, and that kind of makes me a little bit nervous. But in terms of travel, I just wanted to share with you that you should keep your routine the same, as like mimic the same as much as possible, and I do find that that makes traveling a lot easier. Also, there are things that I pay for as someone traveling with children that I would never have paid for before. I've spoken about this, but like, I always have travel insurance. When I was a single person, I did not care about travel insurance. I was like, why am I paying the extra money? With children, I always pay for the travel insurance. The other thing that I always do is that when I'm driving somewhere, I will pay, you can always pay extra to like be nearer to the airport and pay for the valet. I will do that. Before I had children, I would never pay for those things. Like, I'm just not doing it. But I just want to encourage you that obviously I appreciate for what you can afford. I'm not saying that everybody can afford all the add-ons, and not all add-ons are necessary. However, for some add-ons that pre-children you might have turn up your nose and say, yeah man, it's not necessary, post with the children, babes, I would encourage you to really reconsider, because especially if you're traveling by yourself with the children, it can just make travel a little bit more easy. The other thing, I haven't even checked the immigration like rules in terms of point of entry for where we're going. I'm terrible at that. I am very arrogant with the British passport. Don't get me wrong, I have two passports. I have a Jamaican passport, I have a British passport, and I know with my Jamaican passport there's very few places that I can get to without a visa. And so what I like, when we're in South Africa in January, it was when we were at the airport in the line waiting to get to the immigration officer that I said, let me check how long we're even allowed in the country, because I hadn't even checked. I was staying there for, I think, 6 or 7 weeks, and I haven't even checked if that was allowed. So as we're having this conversation now, or as I'm talking to you, I'm like, let me go check for the next destination what I actually need to do to enter. But it's gonna be a rough week, because as soon as I land, I go straight into filming for the podcast. I don't even have all of my podcast guests confirmed. This particular destination has been more difficult than any other destination. So normally when I do a podcast, I go and I find a studio in that country and I film there. This city does not have a studio that is appropriate in terms of production quality. So I'm bringing someone from another country to this country to film, just so that I keep the standard appropriate in line with what I consider to be our brand from a podcast perspective. Normally I shoot 12 to 14 episodes in about 6 days. When I was in Cambodia, I did 18 episodes in 6 days and my voice was gone. It was like madness. I haven't even got the rest of the guests for this next destination. I also always partner with a local clothing company, whether that's a store or a fashion brand. It tends to be an independent company. I haven't confirmed who the clothing partner is. We're filming next week, right? The other thing is, because we've had to make up a studio, so I've had to rent a specific Airbnb for filming. I need equipment. I don't have the rest of the equipment yet. So I'm just sharing all of this with you, basically to hopefully share that it's okay when everything is not going to plan, because I have faith that it's just going to work. It has to work out, right? I haven't organized childcare. So again, in each destination, I have to find a nanny to look after my girls whilst I'm filming. I don't have childcare. So at the minute, there is not a single element to the podcast in terms of the components that are needed to plan and make it work. There's not a single element that is sorted. Not a single element confirmed. So I will keep you posted. Basically, I will come to your questions now, because we all know that I will talk out the life of everybody and then never answer anything. Can you go through your routines that you do daily, like spending times outdoors, etc.? Any vitamins that you all take? So I'm not an advocate for vitamins. I'm not convinced that they work, especially for children. I don't think they need vitamins as long as their diet is giving them what they need. I do appreciate that modern vegetables and they're not as nutrient dense as they were back in the day, unfortunately. The world is just on the decline, but I don't take any vitamins. And as an adult, I used to take vitamin D when I lived in the UK, but babes, we're in the sun. I've not been in a cold country for over a year, so I don't take vitamin D anymore. Will this live be recorded? Yes, so I have been on YouTube. I keep the lives and I make them public, so you can always check back in. What is a tip you have for keeping consistent with your diet and your exercise and eating healthy? So I don't really exercise, unfortunately. I don't really have time. I used to love going to the gym just to kind of zone out. What I have started doing recently is I will lie in the sun for 20 minutes, completely in my birthday suit, just because I like the feeling of the sun on my skin. I like that it's a good way to start the day. And I've started stretching, because I feel like everything just tight, babes. Everything just tight. And let's be honest, I get in all. So I have started to try and improve like just my physical movement in the mornings. But in terms of my tip, honestly, just do what feels good. And remember to believe in delayed gratification. I've just posted a video on TikTok just talking about screen time and the fact that we live in this world that no longer values delayed gratification. But that principle applies to so many things. It applies to the way we eat, it applies to the way we live, exercise, etc. Just think of the long game. Thank you. I'm glad that you love the content, babes. Okay, scrolling back up on this side. I can't leave my TikTok people, babes. You guys are the ones that make lives easy. Honestly, I've been trying to do lives on 2 platforms, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. And TikTok is always my staple, because my TikTok crew keep the questions coming and they keep it engaged. I feel like less I'm just talking to myself and more like I'm actually talking to people. So have your girls know we did that. They've never been scared of flying. Oh, we did about the food. We did lay. April, you have me back on my French journey. Why is Duolingo so aggressive with the reminder? Kerry, big up yourself, babes. I love that you're back to learning a language. I was actually going to film the video today, but I didn't get a chance to just talk about why I chose to teach my children French, but I will get to it. And this week on YouTube, I am going to share the ways, it's a long form video, the ways in which I've made sure that their first language is French. I'm also really happy to report, if you've been on the live over the past week or so, you know that I came up with a game to make sure that my children were only speaking French, because there was just too much English coming out of their mouths. And I'm really happy to report that the game has been absolutely successful. So the first 2 days they lost a few points, but we haven't lost any points since, and I'm super impressed. And it again just goes back to showing you how adaptable children are. Trust me when I tell you, the problem in the room is never the child. It is just never the child. And this little French exercise really confirmed that. Melissa, baby, how are you? Yaya, my darling, are you good? I love your parenting skills. What do you mean they've never had a tantrum? Babe, they've never had a tantrum. They have never, you can ask anyone who's looked after them. My sister was saying it the other day. She's like, it's actually crazy. But they've never had a tantrum. And I know a lot of people say that that's just due to luck, etc. But honestly, I think that I am a very disciplined human being, and thankfully, motherhood has been quite easy for me, and I've been able to implement the things that I've learned in my business with my team, and that has truly helped me shape their environment in such a way that a tantrum was never necessary. I created 3 courses about parenting, and one of them is just about managing tantrums, which actually happens to be the most popular course. I thought everybody was going to come to me for food because I have a parenting course that is just about food. And because of me talking about food 90% of the time online, I thought that that was going to be the course that everybody invested in. But it wasn't actually. It turns out everybody's upset about tantrums, and that is the course that they have invested in. But the reason I did it is because I don't think that the reason why my children haven't had tantrums is an accident. I think that it is due to structure. It is due to like a really clear blueprint that I appreciate not everybody has had the opportunity to fine tune for themselves. I appreciate that a lot of people, in terms of in work, you're receiving instructions, and you might be working within a company that has kind of set up that infrastructure for you to kind of just slot right in. As somebody who ran an independent business for over 10 years, I had to be the structure. And I realized looking back that managing people and getting the best out of people and creating a work environment where people wanted to come and they were thriving and learning is exactly what I've been able to do in my household. Where do I live? I don't live anywhere, babes. I live out of a suitcase. Speaking of which, 2 of my suitcases, the zip on the inside, the thread has broken on 2 of them, and I'm like, I have to fix it. I tried to find somewhere to fix it, and I actually love my luggage right now. It's bright green, so I don't need to like worry about it when it's on the carousel, and I have to figure out a way to sort it out because right now it is not fit for purpose, and we are traveling in a few days. I know your girls are older now, but how and when did you wean them from breastfeeding? Really great question. So my goal for breastfeeding was always up until 2 years old. I haven't done any breastfeeding formula content in a really long time because my girls are older. And you just reminded me, Monica, that maybe I need to change that. I need to do some, because obviously I appreciate that people who watch the content are at different stages of their motherhood. But to be honest with you, I kind of just stay away from breastfeeding talk because I'm not really here for the argument. I don't really understand why there's always an argument around breastfeeding when you promote breastfeeding. But you know what? To hell with the argument. Maybe I should wheel and come again. But to be clear, my goal was 2 because the World Health Organization recommended 2 years old. So I had that in my mind as like my deadline. I breastfed my girls until they were 2.5. And I weaned them. How I weaned them was we basically were down to 1 feed at night. And then I noticed they weren't really drinking. They were kind of just there. It was just a comfort thing. I think it was just a habitual thing. And so I then swapped the boob for a book. So we were still close, still cuddling, still keeping that element of the routine the same in terms of the proximity, but we were just reading instead. And they really went into it seamlessly. Does that mean they've never cried before, being able to communicate what's wrong? So Cody, when I say that my children have never had a tantrum, just to be clear, for me, a tantrum isn't crying. It's not emotion. For me, a tantrum is an extreme version of that. So whether that is screaming, crying, but like not crying because I'm sad, but crying out of like, maybe it's lack of communication or just an extreme level, like there's loud shouting along with the crying, or the flinging yourself down on the floor, or like the kicking and screaming. I realize I'm squinching up my face. I'm very sorry. But when I see tantrums, they just don't look fun. They just don't look fun. It doesn't look like normal crying to me. It looks like your child is in a different kind of zone. And that's what I mean by a tantrum. So before my children could communicate, I had little sign language. We did the food thing. So I had little sign language, which I do think really helps before your children are able to speak. And also, let's be clear that a lot of people presume that because your child isn't speaking yet, that they're not understanding and therefore they just don't bother communicating. I've always communicated with my children, always. I think maybe it's from the French perspective of always trying to speak to them in a foreign language, and I wanted them to hear as much language as possible. There was actually a study that they were looking into. It was on the BBC. I was going to repost it, and then we never bothered. I don't know why. But they were just saying from a screen perspective, that children are not hearing enough language in their environment in those early years where they once were. And they were showing brain scans of children who were around a lot of language, a lot of interaction, and literally you could see how that was affecting the brain positively versus the child that was sitting in front of the screen, and that was obviously having a negative effect. The good news about the study was that it was saying that there's not like a deadline. I can't remember the exact scientific term for when the brain is developing in this way, but basically there was not an age deadline for this development to occur. And so it was encouraging you that whatever stage you are at with your child, please start communicating with them, and you will also be able to reap the same benefits. But the reason I bring that up is because I've always communicated with my children. So I think that that has also helped them feel secure. I think the routine of knowing what is coming next, we really underestimate. I know a lot of people talk about flexibility. I don't believe in flexibility in the early years. I don't think that children are old enough, to understand flexibility in the way that adults are. And so I do rather keep it black and white in those early years. And then the beautiful thing is that when the foundation is solid, you can have flexibility later. So like, I've gone to dinner with my girls recently and it's been past their bedtime, and I'm still a little bit nervous because I know they love their routine, and it's been perfect. And it's been perfect because the foundation is there. And also it's funny, as we're talking about black and white, I saw a video just before I came on that this lady was saying, and it was a really fair point, by the way. She was saying, why does so much of parenting on social media feel so black and white, feel so extreme? Like there feels like there's not enough of a room for a middle ground. And she was referring to, for example, eating healthily. It's like you either eat all healthy or you just eat junk all the time. But she felt that there was no room in between. And I was watching this and I agreed with what she was saying in terms of the portrayal of parenting online. And I just wanted to be clear, my approach may seem extreme, but my character is very all or nothing. It is never because I'm trying to display a version of parenting as perfect or ideal. It's just that I don't do anything in the middle. And I can understand how for some people who are maybe trying to carve their own parenting journey, how that might feel abrasive, it might feel polarizing, it might feel that my approach is pushing you away because you're not doing everything the way I'm doing it. But that's not the case at all. It's just that I can only express the way I do things, and my character is always all or nothing. And that's not just with parenting, that's with people. You either love me or you don't love me, and likewise, it's the way I got into business. It's just very all or nothing. And I appreciate that for some people that might not be very endearing, and that's okay, because it's just kind of who I am and what I'm about. Where are we at? You're raising your daughter exactly how my mom raised me and my siblings. Andy, big up your mom and your siblings. Ghost Tiger, big up yourself, baby. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're loving the braids. They need to come out tomorrow, and then I'm going to soak my hair in some aloe. So I bought a piece of aloe. I don't have no blender, so I don't know how we're going to blend it up, but it has to come out tomorrow. I've been holding on to these braids for dear life, and they're past their sell-by date, babes. Girl, you're lucky I have exams. I'm going to college in September. Amber, big up yourself, baby. I love your parenting skills. Oh, sorry, Cody, we answered that already. How do you handle children's sleeping schedules? In general, babes, again, in those early years, I was not flexible. My children's sleep time was their sleep time. I think I was flexible on 2 occasions, and it ended in tears. And I was just like, we're not doing this again. I'm getting my children to bed, because I was only doing it for the adults in the room. One aunt told me that I needed to learn to be more flexible. And then I asked her for whose benefit. Right? And that's the other thing. A lot of times we're making decisions in our children's lives as parents, and I mean this with all respect, but we're making the decision for ourselves, or we're making the decision for the other adults in the room, but we're not making sure that our children are at the center of those decisions. So in terms of their sleeping schedule, they have been on a sleeping schedule since they were 8 months old, and that was because I discovered a book that was given to me from a neighbor, and she said that this book had the answers. I said, babes, if those answers are there, I want them. And I read the book in a day. I sat down in the rocking chair and I read the entire book, and from then it completely changed my perspective on routines and the importance of a routine, because I didn't know about them before. I genuinely thought that you just woke up when the baby woke up, and you cried when the baby cried, and you kind of just went with the flow of the baby. I didn't realize that you could really tailor their environment to make sure that they were sleeping. So my girls were sleeping 7 to 7 with a wake up at 11 for a feed. And that was from 8 months. And then at 11 months, that 11 o'clock feed dropped and they were sleeping 7 to 7. How does schooling work for the girls? They're homeschooled. Can you see the girls? No, babes, I'm sorry. I don't come on live if my girls are awake. And I wouldn't put them on live anyway. I know that I show my children in my content sometimes, but I do think that there's a really big difference between showing children in content versus like watching them live. Do your kids take naps? They stop taking naps at what age? They stopped taking naps at 2, I think. 2. Hi Leah, how are you, baby? Oh, and also to the nap thing, they stopped taking naps. Like I would put them for their nap and then they just wouldn't go to sleep. And I realized that it was game over for the nap. And I wasn't mad about it just because they've always slept through the night. So I'm like, you know what? I would rather take the loss on the daytime nap. And to be honest with you, the daytime naps were just a little bit annoying because like if you wanted to do anything, again, I had to structure it around the daytime nap. So I was happy for the daytime nap to go because I always had the nighttime. How did you explain when she said she wanted to go to bed? How did I explain? I told her, babes, we're at the airport and we have to wait for the plane to be ready. And once we get on the plane, you can go to bed. Thank you very much, Celia. Hi, Tani. How are you, my darling? I feel like I haven't connected with you in ages. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're feeling healthy, thriving, and living your best life. Pretty Meech, how are you, babes? I've never used my Nigerian passport, only my British. So to be clear, I love having a Jamaican passport because you guys know that any excuse to just fling out a Jamaican flag, passport, island, anything. But the reality is that it is harder to travel on. My children at the minute, they only have a British passport, but once I get back to Jamaica, I'll make sure that they also have a Jamaican passport. They are very upset that I have a Jamaican passport and that they do not. When do you think you're going to allow your daughters to have a phone? Not until they're way into their teenage years. Does your babysitter travel with you, or do you find one in every country? I don't travel with any kind of babysitter or au pair. And to be honest with you, I've loved it. Don't get me wrong, it's a privilege to be able to have someone with you to help you with your children, but I do love just it being us. However, by the end of the year, I do think that will have to change, again, from a language perspective, because my children aren't hearing me speak French to anybody else. They're just hearing me speak French to them, and I do think that is to their detriment. No, I don't have an au pair. So I used to have au pairs when I was living in the UK. Since we've been traveling, I don't have one. Ruthie Boo, the podcast is Babes, How Did You Get Here? You can find it on all platforms, whether that is Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, under A Life Elsewhere. So I've been going around the world finding people who live abroad and just speaking to them about their life's journey. Can you hit? Jay, I'm old. I don't know what that means. How do you know that you can trust a nanny? Really great question. So I've had to fire one nanny in all of our travels, and that was in Cambodia. She locked my girls in an elevator, and then the building sent me the footage of her being on her phone and being completely distracted, even though I'm very explicit about the fact that you should not use phones around my children because my children are screen free. The first day she came, she actually turned on the television, and Maya said to me, she doesn't understand why she turned on the TV. I told her to turn it off, and if she turns it on again, she cannot come back. And at the time, my daughter was 4. And that's the other thing. People don't really understand that when you create your child normal, when other people try and insert themselves in a way that does not align with what they're used to, they don't just start taking advantage of this new opportunity. At least my children don't. They're very confused as to why you're trying to change up the flex, and they want to go back to their comfort zone. And their comfort zone is the environment that I have created. So even though it was their opportunity to sit and watch television all day, which they've never done, they were upset about it. They weren't happy at this new change. They knew that it was not what I would have wanted, and they didn't want it either. In terms of how you can trust them, obviously a referral is always the best way. I do ask certain questions. I do try and feel them out, but I shared with you that I got it wrong. But out of how many nannies have we had now on the road? I want to say maybe I've had 8. So 1 out of 8 being not great is quite good odds. And again, different things will be important to you versus me. So the point is just ask all of the questions. I always meet them in person for a coffee before I hire them. And I do bring the girls to that meeting because I want to see how they interact with my children as well. And also, I really pay attention to less about what is said and more about how they're acting. I don't think she would let you. Oh, I don't know what's going on. um, oh no, it just scrolled and gone. Otawoiwoi. Where are we going? Trying to get back, babes. Trying to get back. Give me 1 second. Oh, I've lost some of the comments. So if I'm gonna go through them. If I don't get to it, just maybe you need to repeat it, but hold on before you repeat it because so I take a look at that time. Do you think you would ever introduce the girls to screen time? If so, do you have an age in mind? Really great question. I was thinking about it today because their reading is getting so much better. It is amazing. You'll read to your child and point to the words, and then all of a sudden, one day it just clicks. Like going through phonics just clicks and they just start reading and you're like, hold on, last week you couldn't read SHIT. And this week, babes, right? It's an amazing click. And again, I share that just to remind you that you're always planting seeds. You are always planting seeds. Whether the seeds are good or rotten is a different kind of story, babes, but you're always planting seeds. And so we only have a few French books with us. And I was like, I really think we need to get some more French books. And I was saying to my sister, do I need to download some French books and show them these French books to continue advancing their French? And I was like, but it just doesn't sit well with me, right? Like, I just don't like the idea of them reading on a screen. But do I need to, kind of compromise? We're having this conversation. And she was like, oh, can you not just print some stuff somewhere? And I was like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Again, just sometimes you just don't have the obvious idea in your mind. So tomorrow I'm going to try and find a print shop and I'm going to try and print off some French books for them to read. And I've also going to order some and get them sent to us. But the point is, I shared that with you to say that it's just not the time for us. I see how my girls play. I see how they interact, and there's nothing about their current routine that I want that to be interrupted with a screen. That won't be forever. I cannot wait to watch movies with them. I can't wait to watch French programming with them and again help with the language perspective. But I do think I've said this before, but just in case you haven't heard, everything in life has an opportunity cost. Every single decision we make. So if we're choosing screens, it is at what cost? And I think that the cost is too great at this age. So I'm leaning towards 7. But again, that will depend on their environmental, what is their environment doing? What do I think that their developmental stage is at? It's not so much a fixed age, if that makes sense. How and when do you exercise? Do you follow anything specific? As in my physical exercise? Yet your tantrums are coming beautiful. Oh, Tom, I don't know what you're saying. When do you think, we said that about the phone. What was the need? I don't even understand what Tom was saying, bitch. I'm so confused. Tantrum is learned behavior for other children, I believe. Honestly, when my children see other kids tantrum, they're very confused. Remember that they are in our little bubble, so they're not used to seeing children go wild and out. I don't mean to offend anyone, but that's what it looks like for us. It's like, yo, what is going on? And so my children stare, they ask questions, they're very confused. It is just not their normal. And I can imagine if they were in a daycare environment where tantrums were constantly happening around them, that they would have a very different reaction, but also they may think that that behavior is cool. And it's not cool. I know that a lot of people have this whole thing about, well, tantrums are perfectly normal for that stage of development. And I'm not denying that, but we can admit that they don't look fun. And just because you might say that for your child, it's their natural, development because they can't communicate or they can't articulate their thoughts, that doesn't make them any more enjoyable. And so if we don't like them, then we should probably see how can we give our child the tools so that they don't need to go crazy. I think that would be a more productive question. Antonia, I'm okay, baby. How are you? the will to change. I'm not sure why you're laughing, but I'm glad that you find something funny. I'm not even a mother, but your voice is so soothing and you're very well spoken. Thank you very much, Lily. Big up yourself, my darling. Frustrating equal tantrum. But that's the thing again. I really like that you said that about in terms of why tantrums. I think which is what I talk about a lot in this course, right? It's less about, I don't know what people would expect from a course from me, but the thing I loved about creating these courses was that it was really about kind of just breaking down behavior and giving people the tools that they need so that they can implement the things that I'm talking about in their real life, right? So each course I created this workbook, and believe it or not, the workbook was more difficult than creating the actual course itself. But what I wanted to really show is that you have to control your child's environment. A lot of people, when you talk to them about parenting, they think that everything is by chance, right? And if you have this attitude that you have no agency, then you're never going to be able to do what's best for you and your child. I find it really empowering to know that I can make decisions and I can make choices that will affect both myself and my children. And so when you talk about frustration, I think that's a really good point, because also I am very in tune with my children, right? A part of not having screens means that we are constantly connected. We are constantly making eye contact. We are constantly playing together. We are doing things together. So again, even when people say about my children, how do I make sure that, what do I do, sorry, when my kids aren't listening? My kids always listen to me. But they always listen to me because I have invested in that relationship. Again, I meet their needs. If your child is eating at the same time all the time, they're never going to have a tantrum and get hangry. You know, when we as adults get hangry, when you're hungry and you're angry and it just becomes a whole emotional thing, imagine that for a little person. But my child never needs to experience that because I know what time they're eating. They know what time they're eating. And so they never have to have that moment of frustration out of hunger. In terms of, again, attention, when you give your children attention, they are less likely to experience these moments of frustration. When you're communicating, they're less likely to have to wild out to get your attention or to wild out because they don't understand what is going on or they can't communicate with you. Because we don't need words. Even before your child is able to talk, you can still communicate with them. As human beings, we are able to communicate without words, right? Whether that is with what we're looking at, whether that's pointing, whether that's just a nod or a change of energy. But if you're not spending the time because you are also on your device all the time, then you're going to miss the cues, you're going to miss the signs. Even this little boy was playing at our house today and he was rubbing his eye. And immediately I was like, boy, if that was my child, we'd be going home. We'd be going home because he's showing us the signs. He can't speak yet, but he's showing us what he needs. And so I think that sometimes as parents, we forget that children can tell us so much if we are open to listening. Yes, the sign language helps tremendously. They understand so well, even at a young age, 100%. Your children are understanding long before that they can speak, long before. And you're doing them a disservice by dumbing them down. How did you make the girls adapt quick to your traveling around the world? I just took them. They adapted. Again, my children are very adaptable because our routine is always the same wherever we are. I've seen such an increase in children at work with barely any speech at such a speedy rate too. I think it has a lot to do with the parenting. But then a lot of people don't like to talk about, like, to blame the parenting. But here's the thing about parenting. If we take the credit for when things go right, we have to have the humility to take the blame when things are not working. And it's okay. I don't really understand why people get so defensive. Scrolling through. Well said. I'm not sure which part, babes, but I'm glad that you agree. Same here. Rashana, big up yourself, my darling. 100 or nothing. The extreme. Yes, I'm extreme, babes. In all the ways. You can mash the aloe. No blender needed. I hope so, because I just wanted to put a little moisture in my head. So I'm hoping so. I was planning on just putting it everywhere. Head, face, all over the place. What do you think of Montessori? I'm really open to Montessori. I mean, I don't know enough about it. I've visited with my sister so long before I had children. My sister's older than me. She has 2 girls, and we were visiting Montessori nurseries together. And I like the fact that it seems to be more about children, like interactive and more play-led and child-led. And it seems to be great, but I don't think that I'm an expert enough to speak on it, like, with my full chest. What's the name of the book? Oh, the book that I read. So the name of the book that my neighbor gave me is called Baby Secrets. It's by Joe Tantum, I believe, and Barbara Want. I think that's their names, but it's definitely Baby Secrets, and I would highly recommend it. It's not gonna suit everybody's vibe, but it was a godsend for me, to be honest with you. I have a 3-year-old, nearly 4. She still naps around 2 to 3 hours. She's a terrorist and a bully without it. Octavia, big up yourself, baby. Wow. 2 to 3 hours. That's amazing. You make mothering look so easy. My kids are grown, but it was hard. Babes, I think sometimes I have a tendency to make a lot of things look easy, but you're not necessarily seeing the like fatigue behind it all. And I think that was the same for business. Everybody used to say that I make business look easy, but business is very isolating. Parenting, especially by yourself, is very isolating. And so I don't ever want to give off the impression that it's like super easy. I do find motherhood easy. I do. That part I won't like lie about, but in terms of managing everything else around it, that part I do find very, very draining. Dads, big up yourself, baby. Gabriella, how are you, my darling? Mia, I hope I've said that right, or Maya, I'm not sure. Good afternoon, babes. So, oh Lord, we've gone, we've gone. I'm scrolling back up like a mad person because this thing just bad mine, so bad mine. Name of the podcast: Search Under a Life Elsewhere. Babes, Ty, big up yourself, my darling. Do you have a strict bedtime routine for the twins or kind of freestyle? No, babe. My character is never freestyle. My girls, their bedtime was 7 o'clock up until about 6 weeks ago, and then I realized that they just had more energy. So we've now pushed it to 8. They're big girls now, and so they go to bed at 8 o'clock. Most times they knock right out. Sometimes they don't. The only rule that I have is that you have to stay in your room. I don't have an issue if they are talking up until God knows what time. I also kind of feel like if I was a twin, I would love to sit up all night and talk to my twin sister. It's funny because the girls are very, very different. So one wakes up in the morning earlier than the other. Her whole entire life she has been this way, and even when I put them to bed tonight, one of them said to me, could you please tell the other one not to wake me up in the morning because I'm tired. And she loves her beauty sleep, babes. So I have a strict go to bed time, but you don't have to actually go to sleep. You can do whatever you want. Do you use all natural products in the girls' hair? Really good question. I'm not really big on hair or beauty or anything like that, to be honest with you. But I do use a sulfate-free shampoo because I remember seeing that it was like stripping your hair. And I use a leave-in conditioner. But it's very low maintenance. It's very wash and just comb out and tie up. I'm not good. I wish I knew how to cane roll, but it's not great. I tried the other day. It's not. It's the only thing that is not black about me. Like clearly I'm black in all of the ways, but in terms of that skill, the hair skill, babe, I wish I was better. Maisie, thank you very much, my darling. I'm a doctor in Jamaica. Joshua, big up yourself, but I love baking. What advice can you offer as it relates to starting a cafe? Joshua, between you and Isaiah, you guys want to talk business and you need to give me specifics. What do you want to know? First of all, babe, why do you want to start a cafe? Okay, why do you want to get into the hospitality business? Because if starting a cafe is just like your own personal like hobby and desire, it doesn't need to be a business, Bobs. You can actually just create a little vibe at your house. For chefs, a lot of times before they open a restaurant or before they start working in a commercial environment, they'll do their supper clubs. You can bring the supper club energy to a cafe vibe. I saw this thing on Instagram. I think these guys, they're a couple, and they create like a home cafe in their apartment in LA, and they like bring out all these different things. They look incredible. The pastries look incredible. Everything looks amazing, but it's like something that they do at home for their friends or whatever. And my point is, I think that's a great idea. If you still really, really have a strong desire to have a cafe, send me some questions and I will make sure that I tailor an entire live just to talking about the hospitality business. But one thing I can tell you is that I opened up my restaurant with zero experience. I'd never worked in hospitality. I'd never been a chef. I'd never done anything. I just had this deep desire and a dream, and I don't regret it for a single second, right? I ran these businesses for just over 9 years. And people that I went to school with said that I always said I was going to have a restaurant. And so I'm really happy to have fulfilled that part of my dream. But I can tell you that it was a lot harder than I expected it to be. Hospitality is no joke. I think, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it's like only 2% get past like the first year or something. It's something stupid. It's one of the worst industries in terms of probability of survival. So yes, I would just really make sure that your why is super strong so that on those bad days, you cannot just take out all your hair and shut down the business. Do your kids ever get cake for their birthdays? No, they've never had any cake for birthday or any other occasion. Hi, Sylvia, baby, how are you? It's been a long time. Do you think it's acceptable to use blended dates in replacement for sugar in baking recipes? Ty, baby, I think that you should do whatever you think is acceptable. I think the word acceptable is really interesting because it's very relative. So I choose not to give my children any added sugar at this age because they are 5 years old. I don't think that 5-year-olds need sugar. If you have been watching any of my content, you know that I consume sugar, but I'm 37 years old. And so I do think that there's a very big difference. When I do start cooking and things with my girls, 100% your natural sugars like your dates, your honey is going to be much better than your added refined sugars. But just still be careful. Just still be careful, babes. That's all I'm saying. Would love to see some recipes for healthier sweet treats in desserts after dark. People have been asking, and honestly, I would love to start making some desserts, but babes, I am struggling with time management as it is. It's 2:19 where I am now. 2:19 in the morning, and I'm on a live talking. When I still have in my notepad, I still have about 8 things to do before I go to bed. So the chances of me cooking or baking for desserts after dark anytime soon, babe, we're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait a while because also when I'm jumping from Airbnb to Airbnb, the facilities often just aren't there. This one I've come back to because they have an oven, they have an island, they have the things that I like. But most times, babe, you're lucky if them have a good frying pan. My daughter is the same way. When she sees a kid having a tantrum, she wants to help them stop. And big up yourself and your cute Bubba. You used to work in my restaurant in Brixton. Hey, babes. How long did it take you to learn French? I think it's an amazing idea. I don't really know how long it took me, but to be clear, I'm not fluent. I'm conversational. I'm not fluent. I'm learning every day. I have to make notes every day. I take screenshots every day, and I try and get better and better. But I have never spoken English to my children. So whilst I was pregnant, I just made that decision that I was going to speak French. And to be honest with you, it was a crazy ass decision. I was reading up on some French curriculum for their age range just to make sure that we're keeping up with what children in mainstream education will be doing. And I'm sitting reading this curriculum in French and I'm just like, whose idea was this? It was very crazy. I think sometimes I just have an idea, and at the time that I have the idea, I'm like, yeah, of course I can do that. And then after a while, I'm like, what were you actually thinking? But the reason I share it is because I really do want people to know that you can do whatever the hell you want to do, and not just French, but anything, any type of parent you want to be, like, even if it seems crazy, impossible, or too extreme, you can 100% do it. April babes, you're smashing motherhood. Thank you very much, my darling. Coming through it. Oh, we did that. We did the dates question. Coming back through again. Greg, big up yourself, babes. Who is your favorite MasterChef judge? Babe, you know that I haven't watched MasterChef. I haven't watched this season. I haven't seen anything about it. I have so much to say about MasterChef, but just know that you are missed. That's all I have to say. Know that you are missed. Summer days, anything healthy? I'm not sure what you're saying. Thank you very much, Victoria. Always mad love from Tanzania. Big up yourself, baby. I'd love to go to Tanzania. Do you have any interest in any other language for your family unit other than French and English? I would love to do Spanish. The girls are really interested in Spanish. They know how to count to Spanish and they know very few words, not enough to have a conversation at all, but they keep asking me about Spanish. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can only manage French at the minute, but I would love for them to learn Spanish too. Hi, babes. What is your name? Pops, Pop, Tom Secret? Why? That's a mouthful. Big up yourself, my darling. Oh, it's gone. It's gone again. Hola, hope you're doing well. I saw something about a retreat you're planning. Yes, guys. So I think I'm gonna plan my first retreat for the end of this year, but in Jamaica, and then next year do a Bali retreat. It is still a question mark. I need to put on Instagram a few questions because most of my requests come from people that follow me on Instagram. So I just wanted to check with them if Jamaica in December was too soon, but I'm leaning towards that, and I think it would be incredible. Obviously you have the retreat aspect in terms of finding the zen and the relaxation aspect, but anything to do with me, babe, we have to bring food into it. So I have this vision of a world tour. Greg, if you're still here, I know you say you're scared to come to Jamaica, you know, babes, but we have to make it happen. But there would be a strong food element, so do a food tour, and then obviously a cooking element, because you can't come somewhere with me and we're not cook something together, baby. Which side of you is Jamaican? Excuse me, Nico? All of the sides, babes. All of the sides. Just because the accent is confused, okay? I am not confused. What is your plan when they start becoming more independent? In terms of, I'm not sure what you're referring to, baby. Um, where are we at? We did the retreat. Oh my gosh, you gave the best advice. Read the cafe. Joshua, I'm glad that you're open to listen. Sometimes people get defensive when I'm not saying that I dissuade people from getting into hospitality businesses, but I just want to be really honest and open, because I think a lot of times people have the need to kind of prop up their own ego, and in doing so, sorry, they then diminish the challenges of anything, not just to do with business, but anything. For example, people have asked, how do they find investors for their restaurant or for their business idea? And I've always been very, very open that I started my first restaurant with £75,000. I took an office and I renovated the office, made it into a restaurant, and that £75,000 investment came from my dad. And I'm very open about it, because I think that there's this weird energy of trying to, this idea that entrepreneurship is just that you're risk averse, you're just different and unique and special. And I want to be clear that you can be different, unique, and special when you have support. Right? It is very different if I came to you and I said I had to crowdfund for my first restaurant, or I had to find an investor, I had to do these things. And I don't think that takes away from anything that I've achieved, but I think that it's important to be honest with others who may want to do the same thing. And I find, particularly in this business space and in this new age of everyone should own a business, and if you're not owning a business, what are you doing with your life, as though it's a bad thing, which I am completely against, because I've said this before, but just in case you're new, babes, if I could get a 9 to 5 and be disciplined enough to kind of ignore my ambition for the things that I want to do and just follow someone else's lead, I 100% would do that. I would be earning a lot more money. I would have a lot more free time. I'd have more sleep. I'd have more work-life balance. But unfortunately, my dad made me this way. And so there's really no other option. But it is an idea that I think about often. I think, oh, maybe I should use my law degree, or maybe I should, kind of go get a job and do something else. And then I end up still on the grind. So we'll see. A hospitality live would be great. Do we want a hospitality live? So here's the thing. Let us next week Friday, let us do the hospitality live on next week Friday. So if you send me your questions, and I'll also put in my stories so that other people can send questions, and then we can have a live that hopefully is helpful for people, whether they're thinking about the hospitality business or just business in general. Would you open a food business in Jamaica? I have thought about it. And right now the answer is no. But I have thought about it, because I think that, especially in the hospitality space, there is so much that needs to be done. But yeah, I'm not sure if I want bricks and mortar, which is what I was saying yesterday. I'm not sure if I want a physical space anymore, because again, the workforce has changed. What people want has changed. People's attitudes to work has significantly shifted post-COVID. And as much as I love having a vision, I will tell you for free that there is no way that you can bring your vision to life without a team that believe in you, without a team that support you. I was so lucky, especially after becoming a mother, that my core team had already been with me for so many years. They had seen me clean the shit out of the toilet with them, because I do not operate on a hierarchical kind of business structure. And they were so happy for me, to be honest with you. They were so happy and so supportive. And without that, I would never have been able to continue running my restaurants and be a mother. So to kind of start from scratch, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want to do that all over again. Ty, no problem, my darling. That's why we're here. Question: how do you stay consistent with posting short form content? I stay up until 2 to 4 in the morning. That is how. So I still have to do everything else, and I stay consistent. I had a real love hate relationship with social media for a very long time. I started taking it seriously. I want to say, not September gone, the September before. So probably, this September will be 2 years that I started taking social media seriously. And the reason I did that is because I have been represented by the biggest agencies, talent agencies in the UK, and I wasn't getting enough work. I wasn't getting enough of anything. I would go to meetings with TV commissioners. They would pull up my Instagram in the meeting, and there was nothing there. When I was doing Cooking with the Stars, the first year that I did Cooking with the Stars, I think I had 2,000 followers on Instagram. And the point is that when people book you for television, they want to see that you're going to pull people to their show. And so I couldn't show that from a social media perspective. And one of my agents was like, you need to take social media seriously. And so I love and still respect him so much. And so I took his advice. He said to me, why are just your children all over your social media? And at the time it was because it was cute to take pictures of my kids. It was easy. And he's like, yeah, but it has nothing to do with what you're doing. And I was like, cool, fair play. And I loved his direct approach. I loved that he was the only person that was kind of being honest to me and not just telling me, oh, you're great, and not giving me any constructive criticism. So I started to take social media really, really seriously after that conversation. And I treated it like business. I had a love-hate relationship with social media because I don't believe in living through your phone. I don't believe in constantly thinking, how are you going to share something to others? And then, to be honest with you, the feedback that I would get regarding parenting, I genuinely believed that all the things that I preach about in terms of parenting, I genuinely believe that everybody knew those things. I just believe that people were making choices that aligned with what they wanted. And then it was like, I posted one random video talking about tantrums, actually. And that went I guess viral, is 1.5 million viral. I don't know what viral is in terms of quantity, but like 1.5 million views. And in that video, I realized that we cannot take it for granted just because you know something or you see something so clearly that everybody else is having the same perception. And so that's when I started talking more about parenting. So are the girls fluent? They are fluent in French and English, yes. What languages do the girls speak? Oh, yep, answered that. Thoughts on homeschooling or world schooling, homeschooling whilst traveling, or private school? My thoughts are, you have to choose what's best for you and your children. So at the minute, I guess you would say that I'm world schooling because we're traveling and homeschool. I didn't know world schooling was a thing, so you've educated me on something today. So we do world schooling because that is what aligns with me. I went to private schools my entire life. I don't think that just because a school is a private school that makes it a good one. And I've said this before, but just in case, we must remember that schools are businesses and therefore we are consumers, and we should pick the school that aligns with our values and our needs. Oh mon Dieu, je parle français aussi. Gwen, bienvenue. Et d'où viens-tu, ma puce? Mais je dois pratiquer beaucoup de français avec les adultes parce que normalement, je parle français juste avec les enfants. Too many parents choose to be toxic. Honestly, I don't really want kids, but if I were to have them, I'd want them like yours. Honestly, mine are pretty amazing, baby. How do you mold little one's mindset on food? You lead by example. You start off early. You just rethink everything that you have been told about food. And then when you're at it, babes, you buy my course and then I set it out for you so that you don't have to do the hard work. Because of you, I'll raise my children bilingual between English and Spanish. Honestly, amazing. And it's just an amazing thing, not just from a language perspective, but again, from the way the brain develops. And let us not forget that being monolingual is the minority. I think when you come from an English-speaking country, there's an arrogance that, well, everybody speaks English. But when you go to other countries, speaking multiple languages is the norm. It is absolutely the norm. And I also think that it will open my children to being more tolerant, more kind, more open to people and their culture. Khadija, big up yourself, baby. Considérez-vous envoyer vos enfants à une école française? Oui, j'ai pensé ça, mais j'ai visité une école et c'était pas très, très bon pour moi. C'est juste comme les autres, mais avec foncé. Et pour moi, j'adore enseigner à mes enfants. Et c'est pas suffisant que l'école par foncé. J'ai besoin d'autre chose. Une chose, c'est plus. Je veux que l'école peut faire plus que moi. Et maintenant, je, je n'ai pas vu ça. Khadija, I'm really well, baby. How are you? Jamaica in December. That girl, that's gonna be pricey. I'm thinking like early December before the prices hit. Although with this current like fuel crisis, God knows what's going on. So are they still doing homeschool and they're in for certain days? No, they've never been to school, baby. They've never been to school or daycare. Leah, big up yourself, baby. What lipstick do I use? This is Charlotte Tilbury Red Carpet Red. It's about to finish. But I also have been using the NARS Star Woman. It's all about the red, babe. It's all about the red. And you know what's funny? I actually don't like my face with red lipstick. I don't really like my face with lipstick on in general. But everybody's always... I filmed some desserts after dark before I came on live, which is why there's still red lipstick on my face. Do you track calorie intake? No. I don't believe in tracking calories. I think it's weird. Especially for children, I think it's weird. I'm never like into dieting for the sake of like keeping a particular weight for my kids. The way I feed my children is solely based on what they're eating from a nutritional perspective and from keeping the shit out of their diet. But apart from that, I don't care. They eat as much or as little as they like. I would never count their calories. I also don't know how to count calories, and it's not something that I'm interested in. A food tour sounds fire. I watched Eating with Todd on YouTube recently, and he went on a jerk tour in Jamaica. A food tour would be absolutely amazing. I hear you, a 9 to 5 isn't me either. It's not for everyone. Honestly, I really wish that it was. You should make a, not sure what you're saying. If I could do the 9 to 5, I would be so there. Do you have a No, I don't have a sourdough starter. I'm traveling the world. There's a lot of things that I don't have. A sourdough starter is definitely one of them. Happy Sunday, Oyo baby. How are you? Thoughts on, oh, we did that. Thoughts on homeschooling. What do you think of food trailers, as in food trucks, from a business perspective? I think that it should not be shunned upon. I think this idea of constantly feeling the need to have a physical restaurant, especially from, I can't speak for the globe, but you know, the way the UK is going, I wouldn't do it now. That's true. People don't want to work these days and think that being a boss is suited to everyone. 100%, I don't think it is, and I don't mean that to be mean. You should make a recipe book for health food you make for your girls. I just signed with a literary agent on Friday, so fingers crossed. One day I will have a book. I have all the ideas, babes. All the ideas. Scrolling through. Bear with me. Okay, no, I thought I got to the bottom. I don't know where we are. Would you stay close to women who make you feel irritated? No, I would never stay close. Forget women. I would never stay close to anybody who makes me feel irritated, sad, or uncomfortable, or unsure of myself. And someone else was asking similar questions the other day about their friends who were mean to them. I'm just like, what are you guys doing? Why are you keeping anyone in your personal like space who is sucking your energy? I only keep good people around me. Maybe that's why I don't have that many people around me. Sorry. I don't have that much faith in humanity. I'm very sorry. Will your girls be allowed to eat fast food in their teenage years? 100%. They're not going to get it from me because I don't eat fast food. But I'm sure that they will be out with friends and family, and one day they will eat fast food. I was about to ask, how are they bilingual so young? Because I've only ever spoken French to them. So they don't know anything else coming out of my mouth. Do your kids do schoolwork in English or French? So they do their work in French. The exception is that we read in both, as in read books in both English and French, because it is important to me that they are able to read in English and French. Thank you very much, Maggie, for the lipstick compliment. I wish my parents cared about what I eat as much as you do, babes. Thank you very much for being so kind. It's funny, and I'll quickly end on that note, actually. I was saying to my dad how recently I feel like I have a lot younger followers than, especially on TikTok, than I did before. And I was like, why would any young person, I'm talking like teenager, why would any teenager want to watch my content, right? And so Maya Angelou, you may know, is one of my favorite authors of all time. She's the reason why my daughter is called Maya. Maya Angelou was also born on the same day as me. And so I just felt like if she had lived a little bit longer, I would have been able to meet her. I don't know how, but I would have been able to meet her. Anyway, her last book is called Mom and Maya, Maya and Mom and Maya, or Maya and Mom and Me, one of them. Anyway, your content is fun. Thank you. But that book, so my mother left me when I was a teenager, and everybody used to say, oh, you need to go and find her, you need to go and, you know, search for her, and you need to try and communicate, you need to reach out. Everybody used to tell me what I needed to do. And I was very confused because I was the child and you decided to leave, so why should I chase you down, right? But the point is that Maya Angelou's last book really kind of affirmed my feelings, right? Really made me feel like I wasn't crazy for feeling the way I did, which was if my mother wanted to be a part of my life, she would have worked to get back into my life, right? And because in this book, Maya Angelou and her mother, so just in case you don't know, Maya Angelou was living with her grandmother until she was about 8 years old, and then her mother went and brought her back to live with her. And so her mother was basically doing everything in her power to really rekindle this relationship. And then I was saying to my dad, I wonder if my content does that for some people. Like, I wonder if they're not particularly happy with everything that's going on in terms of their home and their parents, and maybe like seeing me do certain things in a way that maybe they would have wanted to is doing what Maya Angelou's literature did for me. It's just a theory. I don't know if it's a real thing. It's not, I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it made me think that maybe there is something comforting about seeing a lifestyle that you have imagined in your mind, but like your parents haven't necessarily carried out for you. Will they go to normal school in the future? It is a possibility. I don't write it off. I liked school. I was very good in school. I was very academically inclined. I went to an Ivy League university. I did very well. So I'm not anti-school. I'm just anti-school if it doesn't make sense, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. You should write a book about life experiences and how to enjoy your life. You seem very wise. Thank you very much, Haley. Why don't I eat rice? So when I was 14, I was in a very minor modeling competition. They made me eat water crackers. I don't know if you know what water crackers are. If you're Jamaican, you know what water crackers are. So they made me eat water crackers and water for 2 weeks to drop my weight down. And after I did that and I went back to eating normally, I never went back to eating rice because I just felt like rice was a filler that I didn't particularly enjoy anyway. And so I'm not saying that rice is bad. I'm just saying I think I can do better in terms of from a nutritional perspective. Yes, you definitely have pushed me to be a better mom, started trauma therapy, etc. Babes, big up yourself. Okay, do you think too many Muslims are in the UK? No, I don't think too many Muslims are in the UK. What kind of weird question is that? But on that note, babes, we are going to love and leave you. I have a few things to do before 4 o'clock in the morning. It is now 2:40 in the morning. Big up yourself. Have an amazing week. Thank you very, very much for joining me as per usual on the live, and I will be back on Friday. Send me all of your business related questions and we will make sure that Friday's live is a business related live, especially for Isaiah. Have an amazing night, amazing afternoon. Thank you.